Well, you've all heard the tale of my second worst Thanksgiving. To tell you the tale of my absolute worst, you'll need to know some things. First, Aunt Amy is Uncle Bob's wife. They were together for a long time before that, but they only just married recently. The reason why? My Aunt Carol. My Uncle Bob is the oldest child in their family. It goes Bob, Carol, Uncle Craig, Uncle Tim, my mom. As such, he got held accountable for a lot more than the rest of the family. So when Bob went to his father saying he was going to ask for Amy's hand, Carol threw a fit. Why? Are you ready for this? Because as the oldest girl, she had the right to marry first, out of all the siblings. And Grandpa went with it. My grandfather was a lovely man in many ways, but his single blind spot would be the mold spore that is his oldest daughter. You know why Mom wasn't present in the last story? She hates Carol with a fiery, molten hate and takes every opportunity to ditch holidays around her. So Grandpa vetoed the proposal, and Uncle Bob waited. And waited. I would have just said fuck it and gone ahead with the marriage, but Bob was conditioned to accept his father's word as law. Finally, Carol married my cousin Kevin's father. You'd think that would be the end of it, but no. When Bob asked about money for the marriage, Carol always had some excuse. They were expanding the house. Never did. They needed emergency medical funds. Kevin was covered under his father's policy. When Bob suggested a simple courthouse wedding, Carol lit into him about the indignity of depriving his father of a real big family wedding. Well, say this much for her. Aunt Amy stuck around. She's always been an aunt everywhere except on paper, and I love her dearly. We all do. So the worst Thanksgiving happened my grandfather's last year of life. As I've said before, Bob and Amy had been doing most of my grandfather's care while Carol mostly whined about how difficult it was. She actually had the nerve to try and ban Amy from Thanksgiving, seeing as they weren't married and Amy therefore wasn't really family. Uncle Bob retrieved his balls from storage and told her that Amy had been working harder in 1 year than Carol had in her entire life, and if she so much as mentioned this again, he would kick her out. She pouted, of course. It's what she does. But Bob thought that was all. I don't think I would have made that mistake. My mom actually came to this, her father's last Thanksgiving. My dad stayed home, pled the flu. Really, he was just watching football. The lucky bastard. We all had fun saying hello to Aunt Amy, complimenting her on how hard she worked and how good the food smelled. You could practically see steam rise from Aunt Carol's scalp. She tried to steal attention by making loud, tragic announcements such as,
"I just realized this may be our last Thanksgiving as a family."
We ignored her as best we could. I popped up to see my granddad. He's been a big, broad man, and the cancer had gutted him into a scarecrow. The light was gone from his eyes at this point. The machines were doing everything. I held his clammy hand in my own and tried to remember good times. Of course, Carol had to ruin it by bustling in, rearranging pillows and asking Dad a bunch of rhetorical questions. I gave it about 5 minutes before I left trembling with anger. Come to find out later that it happened to everyone. Carol butted in on their private moments with her dying father to grasp for attention. None of us suspected she might have had an ulterior motive. Well, as you can see from my last post, Carol is not much of a cook. She thinks she is. She is not. The bitch could burn water. Aunt Amy, after months of dealing with her bullshit, had become an expert Carol wrangler. Carol could manage one dish. One. It could not be oven cooked, so she wouldn't interfere with the turkey, nor was she allowed to make a dish that someone else was already bringing. Carol made a face, but obeyed. Aunt Amy, give her credit, was at least a little more suspicious of her than Bob. But the whole day was a frenzy of cooking, and so she lost track of Carol. Carol was making some sort of individualized meat pie and confiscated the turkey giblets. Bob usually uses them to make mouth-watering gravy, but let them go for the greater good. She used Pillsbury biscuit dough for the crust. How did she make meat pies when she was banned from the oven? Our dear friend the microwave. It made the house smell like dog food, a smell that makes me anxious to this day. Uncle Tim was down from the Air Force that day. He actually kicked Carol out of the room so he could have personal time with the father he hadn't seen in years. After taking his time, Tim emerged with a disturbed look on his face and held a whisper conversation with Uncle Bob. It came out later that the surgery stitches on Grandpa's chest had been disturbed. They were bleeding and bruised, like someone had reopened it and then drawn the suture back up too tightly. Bob figured Aunt Carol had messed with them for sympathy and filed it away for later, wanting to spare us the big screaming fight that would ensue. Spare us. Carol plopped a little individual pie down on every plate, not asking any of us if we even wanted one. My older girl Jill was just starting in her vegetarian kick and made a face. My little Katie almost shoved it in her mouth, but I took it away from her. Thank God. True to form, Carol had to stop the whole dinner to make a long, self-indulgent toast.
As you know, my father is reaching his last wretched moments.
Carol dabbed away a tear. Mom, who hadn't missed the possessive singular my, gripped her knife tightly.
I want everyone to know that he was a great man, that he suffered so much but always provided for his family.
The veins on Bob's neck were standing out. Aunt Amy was gripping his hand so tight her knuckles were white.
That's why I've put on this dinner tonight, so that we may give thanks for my father giving us each...
Uncle Bob broke. He pushed the chair back so hard it fell over.
Shut up. Shut the hell up about giving. You don't know a single goddamn thing about giving. Your own father is dying and you're still taking from him.
He pointed at her.
Don't deny it. Cut this bullshit about giving, Carol.
Carol was never one to realize when someone was angry with her. She drew herself up, indignant.
That's exactly what I was doing,
she said.
I was making sure to give a piece of Dad to everyone.
As one, we looked down at our meat pies.
Oh, dear God,
Aunt Amy said. The ER is crowded on holidays. Family brawls, kitchen accidents, everything terrible under the surface comes bubbling out. Getting a doctor to look at Grandpa was a nightmare, while the uncles took him to the hospital where he underwent emergency surgery. My mom and Aunt Amy took turns disposing of what we later confirmed to be pastries filled with my grandfather's tumorous flesh.